1901, a railway porter in Manchester slept beneath a soot-darkened window while the city waited for morning. 3 sharp taps struck the upstairs glass, 20 feet above the pavement, cutting through coal smoke and freezing fog. The man below carried a long bamboo pole. He wasn't a neighbor or policeman. Waking strangers was his paid work before dawn. What nobody knew at the time was that this small trade helped synchronize mills, employing 3,000 workers across a single district. Shifts began at 5:30, and one missed morning could erase a day's wage. Before alarm clocks, who woke the city? The figure with the pole was a knocker-upper, one moving part in a human machine built to control time. Manchester, 1901. Long before morning became a number, most people rose because daylight, hunger, animals, or duty told them to. Before factory whistles, a farmer often woke when gray light reached the rafters, and livestock began shifting behind the wall. His day started with work that needed doing, not with a minute chosen by a clockmaker miles away. Roosters helped, but they weren't precise instruments. Hunger, weather, nesting hens, and moonlight could change the hour without warning. Summer pulled families from bed before 5. Winter might leave the same room dark until nearly 8 o'clock. That difference rarely stopped a whole village, because neighbors adjusted together and most tasks followed the sun anyway. Candles marked rough intervals, and hourglasses measured particular jobs. Yet neither device promised a worker an exact waking time. Meals, prayers, markets, and chores divided the day into useful blocks. People knew when, even when they lacked minutes. A clock was valuable, but punctuality hadn't become a private moral test. Arriving with daylight could be perfectly reasonable. The burden fell hardest during harvest, lambing, storms, or travel, when missing a narrow window meant real loss. In winter, a household might keep one person near the embers, listening for animals and judging dawn through frost. Their body learned patterns from repeated labor. Cold feet, an empty stomach, and habit often beat any bell. This wasn't freedom from time. It was dependence on seasons, weather, and other people who noticed changes first. Minutes barely mattered. Tasks came first. Then towns placed thousands of lives within hearing distance of one commanding sound. Once that sound began commanding markets, prayers, and gates, morning stopped belonging only to the sky above them. 12 strokes from a tower could cross rooftops, courtyards, workshops, and beds, giving an entire town one shared hour. Monasteries had long divided days with canonical hours. Their bells called communities to prayer before public clocks became common. By the late Middle Ages, tower clocks appeared across European towns, though their hands and accuracy varied widely. Many early clocks announced time through bells instead of readable faces, because sound traveled farther than numbers could be seen. The bell for opening a market differed from the alarm for fire, invasion, worship, or closing gates after dark. Listeners learned the patterns. Bells became language. A repeated peal moved bodies before anyone checked a dial nearby. But sound weakened behind thick walls, heavy curtains, wind, and distance. Sleeping workers could miss the signal entirely. Wealthier homes sometimes kept clocks, while poor residents borrowed time from towers, neighbors, or the nearest workshop bell. Public time also carried authority. The person controlling the bell could decide when trade began and when movement ended. That power grew as towns crowded. A late vendor might lose customers. A closed gate could strand a traveler. The tower solved only half. It told sleepers the hour without ensuring they heard it inside their rooms. Families responded by leaving shutters cracked, sleeping lighter, or asking someone nearer the street to listen for them. A bell could wake a neighborhood, but it couldn't climb stairs, cross a blanket, and touch one chosen shoulder. For that, the household needed its own human clock, and that clock was usually the first person awake. Who rose first when everyone shared one dark room? Usually the person responsible for fire, food, children, or animals. In many homes, women began before dawn, rebuilding embers, carrying water, and preparing bread while others slept nearby. Servants in larger houses crossed cold corridors with candles, opened curtains, and called each room according to rank and schedule. A mother might shake one child for school, send another toward a workshop, then wake her husband last for work. One child rose, another followed. A knock on a partition passed through several beds like a domestic telegraph. Lodging houses use similar chains, with landlords or designated tenants rousing workers who paid for a reliable call. The cost stayed hidden. Someone surrendered sleep so everyone else could claim punctuality without noticing the sacrifice each morning. That someone was often poorer, female, younger, or employed in service. Morning discipline followed the household's hierarchy closely. In cramped rooms, accuracy came from feet knowing loose boards, hands finding matches, and ears recognizing each sleeper's breathing. Mistakes carried consequences. A missed apprentice could lose breakfast, face a fine, or be turned away at the gate. Still, the system worked while home and workplace remained close enough for one person's effort to bridge both. Industrial districts broke that balance. Crowded families slept far from mills, demanding the same starting minute from everyone. The kitchen fire couldn't coordinate 1,000 workers, and a tired mother couldn't patrol a whole street before dawn. The next solution would move waking outside the family, but first clocks had to become useful enough to tempt buyers. Clocks existed centuries before ordinary workers could trust one beside the bed. Availability, price, and alarms were separate problems. Large domestic clocks needed skilled makers, regular winding, and careful adjustment. A stopped mechanism offered no mercy at dawn. Early portable timepieces could drift badly, especially after shocks, temperature changes, or neglect. Precision demanded maintenance and money. Some people used candles marked with hours, placing nails so falling metal might strike a plate during the night. The trick could work, but flame length, drafts, wax quality, and fire risk made it an uneasy bedside assistant. Levi Hutchins is often credited with building a personal alarm in 1787, fixed to ring at 4 each morning. His device served his own schedule and couldn't be reset freely, so it wasn't yet a mass solution. Antoine Redier received a French patent for an adjustable mechanical alarm in 1847, according to standard clock-making histories. Even then, a patent didn't place affordable clocks inside tenements. Production, distribution, and wages still determined access for workers. A family owning one clock might keep it downstairs, beyond hearing range, or reserve it as a prized object. Others borrowed time from a neighbor, watched a factory chimney, or listened for carts beginning their routes outside. Exact time existed. Ownership lagged behind. Many families still couldn't carry reliable minutes home across the industrial city. That gap mattered less until wages depended on synchronized arrival. Then every unreliable minute gained a price at the gate. The factory didn't invent lateness, but it turned lateness into a punishable event recorded beside a worker's name. Rules posted at mill gates often tied late arrival to lost pay, locked doors, or dismissal after repeated offenses. Before steam power, many crafts followed flexible daylight. Machines changed that because idle equipment consumed capital without producing goods. One engine could drive dozens of looms, so owners wanted every hand present when the shaft began turning. Factory bells and whistles reached across districts, announcing shifts with a force no kitchen voice could match at dawn. Yet those signals came too late for sleepers. Hearing the starting whistle from bed meant failure had already happened. Workers needed advance warning for dressing, eating, walking, and crossing gates before the official minute arrived each morning. Railways deepened the pressure. British companies adopted standardized time during the 19th century, narrowing local differences between towns. Greenwich time spread through timetables, stations, and public clocks, though legal and local adoption didn't happen everywhere at once. A worker could now miss not just a foreman, but a train connection fixed to printed minutes on paper. Employers held the better clocks and defined the correct hour. Workers carried the risk when two dials disagreed. In some districts, gates shut at the bell. A man arriving seconds later could watch his day's income disappear. Minutes became wages. People ate faster. Fixed routes trained them to fear a closing gate each morning before work. The whistle commanded thousands, but it couldn't prepare them. Industry had built demand for an earlier, smaller signal. Someone had to arrive before the whistle, know each household's hour, and wake only the people paying for it. That need created the knocker-upper, a paid caller who walked industrial streets while most windows remained dark before dawn. The service appeared across parts of Britain and Ireland during the 19th and early 20th centuries in working districts. Customers paid small weekly fees, often choosing different times according to mills, docks, railways, bakeries, or markets nearby. A short stick reached ground floor doors. Upper windows required long poles, sometimes made from light bamboo or fishing rods. Some callers used pea shooters or tubes, sending dried peas against glass where a pole couldn't reach safely. They aimed for the customer's pain, not the whole building. Precision protected sleep and protected future business on the street. The caller kept tapping until a face appeared, a curtain moved, or another agreed signal confirmed success from upstairs. Leaving after one knock invited complaints. The job wasn't making noise, it was proving the right person had risen. Many practitioners were older men, women, night workers, or people combining the route with another low-paid occupation for income. Photographs and newspaper accounts show callers with poles reaching upper stories, though details differed between cities and decades. Their work began in cold, rain, and fog. Missed customers could cost reputation, fees, and referrals the following week. The service wasn't quaint. Clients bought insurance. One missed call threatened wages, rent, and the callers standing on the street. A knocker-upper sold trust in 8-second bursts, each tap carrying rent, food, and a family's weekly margin to the window. One sleeping worker needed one call. 100 workers required routes, records, memory, and discipline before sunrise every day. A busy route might contain dozens of addresses, each tied to a different minute and workplace across town. Callers learned which alleys flooded, which gates locked, and which customers slept behind second or third floors. Some kept written lists, while others relied on memory shaped by walking the same sequence every morning for years. The route had to minimize backtracking. One late stop could push every later window beyond its promised time. Different taps could carry meaning. A quick pattern might mark one household, while another expected a longer rattle. Callers watched for proof before moving on, with a raised sash, lifted blind, or shouted answer releasing them to continue. Winter complicated everything. Gloves dulled grip, fog hid numbers, and frozen streets slowed the careful climb toward distant windows. Rain turned paper lists soft, while wind shifted light poles. Reliability came from practiced movement, not elegant equipment. The work also demanded restraint. Hitting too hard risked broken glass. Hitting too softly risked a sleeper missing work. Each house contained different stakes: a dock shift, a bakery oven, a train departure, or a school bell. For poor families, one failed call could erase money reserved for coal, bread, candles, or rent that week. Memory was the business. The pole was visible. The route inside the caller's head created the value each morning. Morning moved, window by window. No central machine controlled it, yet thousands reached work through repeated human promises. The arrangement seems complete until one question breaks it open. Who made sure the knocker-upper woke first each morning? Who woke the person paid to wake everyone else? The answer changed with the worker, route, and city. Some knocker-uppers held night jobs and began calling customers before going home to sleep after sunrise at last. Others depended on a spouse, neighbor, tower bell, factory clock, or a trusted alarm kept somewhere in the house. A baker already working near an oven could wake a caller. The caller then woke mill workers several streets away. In another chain, a night watchman might rouse one woman whose pole reached 20 upstairs customers before dawn. Nobody stood first. Schedules overlapped. Light sleepers and night workers supplied reliability because failure cost too much for families. That dependence explains the profession's strength and weakness. Community created backup, but one broken link could spread delay. Callers also train their bodies through routine, waking at similar hours after years of repeated winter routes and summer. Such habits weren't magical. Irregular sleep, exhaustion, illness, or family demands could still defeat the most practiced caller. Clients sometimes used more than one safeguard: a caller, a neighbor, and a household member listening for bells. The redundancy resembled modern backup alarms. What changed wasn't anxiety, but who carried the responsibility when morning failed. Under the old system, failure had witnesses, blame. Under a private clock, oversleeping looked like one person's fault. The city had built a living network of bells, families, callers, and work rules, all linked before daylight. Then mass production placed a small mechanical substitute on bedside tables, cutting one human link after another from the chain. Alarm clocks didn't replace callers the moment they appeared. They won when ordinary households could buy and trust them. Factories stamped standardized alarm parts by the thousands, lowering prices while making replacement springs, bells, and keys easier to obtain. Assembly lines turned delicate craftsmanship into repeatable labor, allowing one small clock to leave the factory every few minutes. Working families compared prices carefully because buying an alarm meant sacrificing money otherwise reserved for coal, food, or rent. Employers welcomed private alarms because responsibility shifted homeward. A late worker could no longer blame bells, neighbors, or callers. Beside the bed, the clock promised independence. One winding key replaced a route, a ledger, and another person's winter footsteps. But early household alarms rattled, drifted, stopped, and sometimes rang weakly beneath blankets. So trust arrived slowly rather than overnight. Families tested them against factory bells, setting the clock early and waiting to learn whether its mechanism kept honest time. Inside the casing, a spring stored the night's tension until gears released a hammer against metal at the chosen minute. For years, callers and clocks worked together. Customers bought alarms, yet kept paying for a human backup through dangerous winter mornings. A worker might wind his clock, place it across the room, and still ask a neighbor to listen before the gate closed. Shopkeepers improved louder bells, sturdier springs, and adjustable hands, while competition pushed ordinary models toward prices within working-class wages. By the 1930s, a reliable bedside alarm had become ordinary in many urban homes, though poverty still delayed adoption. As customers disappeared street by street, the caller's route shortened, fees shrank, and each remaining window stood farther apart. Radio alarms later joined clocks beside the bed, combining scheduled sound with electricity and reducing dependence on winding keys. By mid-century, morning had become private household technology, although families still relied on one another when power or mechanisms failed. Later, digital clocks added clearer displays, battery backups, repeated alarms, and buttons designed to postpone waking for minutes. Snooze changed the bargain. The machine could call again, letting one person negotiate with morning without another human present. Mobile phones then combined alarms, calendars, messages, maps, and shift reminders inside one object carried all day around the world. A modern user can set several alarms, label them for flights or medicine, and change them without touching gears. Network time also corrects itself from external signals, reducing the drift that once haunted household clocks through long winters. Convenience hides the older network. Bells, servants, mothers, callers, and factory rules have disappeared inside one electronic tone. The gain is real. Privacy expands. The loss stays hidden because the vanished network now sounds like one electronic tone. People didn't wake themselves. Society woke them. Then technology compressed that social labor into a mechanism beside the bed. When the alarm fails now, blame points inward. Earlier mornings exposed dependence because the helper stood outside the window. Return to Manchester, 1901. A railway porter hears 3 taps, rises, dresses, and reaches the platform before dawn. The city woke through layers: sunlight, bells, family labor, factory discipline, and paid callers carrying time from street to street. For that porter, 3 taps protected a day's wage. For the caller, One answered window protected a reputation. Today, a phone glows beside the same kind of window, performing alone what several people once shared before sunrise. Tell us how your parents or grandparents woke for work, school, farms, factories, or military shifts before alarm clocks. Subscribe for more hidden histories of ordinary survival. Morning no longer walks the street, but its old footsteps remain.